time out and speaking to Business World. Michael, to start out, what I wanted to kind of get an assessment on is Salesforce is at the forefront of agentic AI as a technology. If you can talk about how internally agentic AI is kind of helping your company globally, and is there any role that India is playing right now?
Yeah, we are obviously, at the leading edge of the agentic technology revolution. I mean, of course, we have our product Agentforce that cuts across kind of every function, with our Trojan horse being service and sales mainly. But we are actively deploying agentic technology and Agentforce internally in almost every facet of our business. And there's a lot of trial and error involved, a lot of experimentation. But the real goal at the end of the day is to advance our overall agenda as a company and to actually get leverage out of what we already have in place. And for us, it's much less about a cost-cutting exercise and much more about how do we grow in a non-linear fashion without necessarily having to grow headcount at the same pace. And so India is hugely important in that equation. And there's a couple aspects of it. One, from a business standpoint for us, it's our fastest growing market in the world right now. We did just over $1.5 billion in revenue last year. We'll do more this year. And so it's a hugely important business for us. Second is it's a huge R&D center for us. And our primary data cloud, our data and agentic AI teams are based here. And we are growing headcount quite rapidly. And so the center of gravity from a development standpoint, from an innovation standpoint, sits here. And then third, it's a broader operation structure for us, whether that's finance where I sit, whether that's in strategy and operations, you name it, it's all done here in India. And it's our second biggest employee base outside of the US and our fastest growing employee base anywhere in the world. So we are actively growing and investing as fast as we can.
If you can talk about how the finance function is kind of getting disrupted by agentic AI, what are you yourself kind of doing differently? Are there particular use cases that are working somewhere and not working somewhere? If you can give us, what are your preliminary assessments from 25 and what do you see changing this year forward?
Yeah, I shared earlier today with the group of the CFOs that we were talking with that it's the classic dynamic where you overestimate what's going to happen in a year and you underestimate what's going to happen in 5 years. And I think finance is right in the crux of that. And I think right now what you're seeing a lot of lighter weight cases. And so whether that's something like AP automation or investor relations or collections or something along those lines, it's very tactical. Think about a chatbot on steroids is the more common example. Where I anticipate it going is you can imagine a world where the finance professionals that act today that made their living on doing things like modeling out what a business case might look like over the next 5 years to having agentic AI do all of that work, and then you spend all of your time really fine-tuning the model and then talking about the business impact that that's going to have. And the way I talk about it with my team all the time is we really have to find those use cases from an agentic AI technology standpoint that take the everyday, monotonous, repetitive side of finance out and replace it with high-value impacting items. And I think we are very, very early in that curve. And I think it's going to take a while. I think it's going to take a solid 2 to 3 years before we really start to see inflection. But I can already see the impact it's going to have on companies like ourselves, where now you get all of these finance professionals who know all the data. And so it's not necessary for them to process the data. Get the machine to process the data, get the machine to create the models, and then you spend your time interpreting it for everybody else in the company. And I think it's going to be very powerful.
From what I can kind of assume is that as a CFO, you're more of a decision maker rather than going into the basics and kind of looking into the finances too much and auditing and stuff like that. But what is the function of a CFO in the age of agentic AI? And how important is that for a C-suite level professional versus what is it at a director or perhaps even less?
So needless to say, at all levels, finance professionals are going to be expected to do more with less. And the agentic AI technology is really pushing that thought process and expectation to the forefront. I think to me, today, the job of a CFO is really about being that co-pilot for the CEO and helping the CEO make data and fact-based decisions with insights of how that decision is going to impact the broader business. And I think agentic AI technology is really going to help fuel that and take it to a different level. And of course, that's on top of the day job that CFOs are already being asked to do, whether that's the fundamentals around governance, things like transformation, things like being a sales officer, which is what most CFOs are asked to do today as well. And so I think as you start at the top of the CFO and then you work your way down through the org, everybody's going to be expected to level up their game with agentic technology. And I think we're in the very early stages. The further down in the org you go, that everyone is still trying to learn the muscle. Now, the one caveat I would give you to that that's super unique right now is that the new grads coming out, so the folks that are just entering the workforce, and this was a really big revelation for us this past fall with our intern class from last summer. They came in and we gave them projects, and their first approach on every single project we gave them was AI. And that was very different than anybody else in our workforce. Everybody else in our workforce goes, okay, this is how I've always done it. I'm going to do it that way. And then maybe I'll look at AI to see if that can help. Versus our interns came in, they're like, okay, you gave me XYZ project. I'll bet I can solve this with AI. Let me try that first before I do anything else. And so we're actually ramping that effort up. And the goal is not to replace the current workforce we have. The goal is to infuse that thought process into the organization from the bottoms up, as opposed to just being tops down, with what we're trying to do from a CFO standpoint.
So my final question would be, everyone is not getting into Salesforce and getting projects like that, not getting that exposure. So what would your advice be to the finance students who are in school right now and perhaps looking to get into school and looking to get into the workforce? What is your advice? The basics have to be good, as always. But what has to change in their approach to get a job?
So I'll tell you a few things. One, be curious and hungry to learn new technologies, because we're in a zone where even the graduates that came out last summer, the technology is growing so fast that you have to continue to learn. And so stay hungry and stay curious and keep learning. That's one. Two, get hands-on application. I don't care what the job is, but apply AI to it and build your muscles. Because the more you can come in and talk about live actual cases or examples that you worked on, the better off you're going to be when you go into sales mode. And then third, and this is going to be kind of an age-old structure, but looking for a job is no different than if you were a salesperson. And in a sales structure, everyone knows that if you're only going to land 1 out of every 100 leads you call, and you need to make 10 sales, well, guess what? You need to make 1,000 calls. And so looking for a job, especially in this era, is no different. You just have to keep pushing and keep pounding the pavement and leverage your network, and don't be afraid to reach out. And I recognize it's a scary time to enter the market, but it's also a very exciting time to enter the market. So you'll get that break. Everyone needs that break at some point, so just keep pushing.